I want us to listen carefully to what this man have to say, after which I'm going to share my own perspective in this particular subject matter.
So sad when I realized we have too many lawyers and too few engineers and too few agronomists or agriculture experts compared to other Asian countries. I'll tell you, I have noticed that we have copied our former colonizer USA too much on almost everything. We copied the American political system. We
Okay.
copied the American educational system, including the prevalence or the favoritism towards lawyers as becoming future leaders of the country instead of engineers becoming leaders. Why do I say so? Lance, years ago, I was invited by mechanical engineers in their national convention at a big area in SMX. And I remember, sabi ko, I had to research about engineering, the impact of engineers
Yep.
to countries.
Yep.
And during my research all over Asia, I stumbled into a fact that was to me startling and thought-provoking. China, since Deng Xiaoping's reform era 1980 plus up to now, all the leaders of China 80s to 2024, that's almost 40 plus years, all their leaders are engineers, have been engineers. The president of their country had been all engineers. The head of the parliament, all engineers. The premier of China, all engineers except the previous premier Li Keqiang was not an engineer, but all of them were civil engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, geodetic engineer. I was so amazed.
Have you listened to what the man said? And before I say anything, there is a comment from someone that actually responded to me because I made a statement by saying that he is overhyping the Chinese people. What he said may be in alignment, but that's not actually the main purpose or the main reason why China is actually developing at the level it is developing. It has to do with leadership, not necessarily field of study. But before I go on, let me read what the guy replied me. And then the guy said, lawyers are only befitting and must answer to what the technocrats leader told them to enact laws. They cannot be given power to rule, even though the sentences are not concisely written. But what he's saying is that lawyers are not actually going to make good leaders in the society. But the question is this: do leadership answers to field of study, or is this something that has to answer to insight, knowledge, and wisdom? I tell people, you see, often than now, that leadership is something that has to do with one's ability to articulate a problem for his or her citizens and help them to solve it by mobilizing the people, motivating the people, taking the same people to achieve a common goal. That's the position of a leader. A leader is not the one that goes to the school to solve mathematics and solve a complex physics equations or whatever you can call it. No, leadership has to do with the ability to perceive a problem that is beyond the comprehension of the people around you. This is something like have to do more like having high level of intuition that you can see a problem in the society and you are willing to help your people to solve it by motivating and mobilizing them to do that. I'm going to back up what I'm saying with facts because I do not just say things and just let it go like that. So, first of all, if we look at the man, he said that he started studying. You see, he started studying and he studied the Chinese. He said that since Chinese started excelling since 1970, after the likes of Deng Xiaoping, which we know is his policy and institution that have come to build China to what it is today. He says since then to this moment, China, as it is, has always made their prime ministers to be engineers, right? They are not just people who studied law, economics, or political science. And for that reason, that is the essence as to why China is developing. But I'm saying no. The reason why China is developing is because the leaders have come to articulate the problem for their people and they are using the strategy which they have learned to help those people to lift themselves out of poverty. Now, let me make it clear. Now, Deng Xiaoping himself, who initiated the idea that transformed China to what it is today, didn't study engineering in school. You see, that's it. And now let's do the rate comparison right now. Do you believe more on the man that build or the man that sustain? Keep the answer to yourself. Let's move on. Now, if you take what he said about the Chinese are build, but if you look at something else that someone like Deng Xiaoping in the 70s, when he had gotten tired of what is happening in his country and he wanted to learn the rules and regulations that guys, some countries that are excelling, he had to go to Japan because Japan was actually developing. So when he went to Japan, he learned their principle and he came back and deployed it in work. Now, one of the people I supposedly believe he learned from is a man known as Takeo Miki of Japan. He was the one that initiated the idea that transformed Japan to super economic power, what it is today. And him himself studied law. He didn't study engineering. That's the most powerful thing you need to understand. And you must understand also that Takeo Miki himself had to adopt his idea from the Western Americans because he understood quite all right that after the war, he needed to understand the concept that built America. So he takes their technology and science and adapt it to their culture. And that's why they were able to build Japan. It's not because he studied engineering. Now let's do more analysis and or more comparison, or I give example anyway. If you go to somewhere like Singapore, we know that Singapore is a very strong, powerful economy when it comes to their GDP. And they had almost literally no natural resources when the Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew assumed the office of the presidency in 1965. In fact, there is a story being told that when he became the prime minister, often that he is consistently thinking about the situation and the poverty that have come to head grip of his people and how he could help them to solve it. By that process, he felt sick and he was taken to hospital. I'm just digressing anyway. But the idea is this: Lee Kuan Yew single-handedly built Singapore from a third world country to a first world country. He studied law in the University of Cambridge. So it is not more or less like you study engineering. You know, my response to the young man is that it is not just about studying engineering, right? Because if it is studying engineering, then other countries that have developed that is not an engineer that is ruling them should not be developed. And there are so many countries in the world that are not developed, that have been ruled several years by those who studied engineering. So leadership and then institution that develop the nation is not something that is subject to engineering. It is subject to wisdom and knowledge sensitive or intelligence sensitive. I've said this time and time again. It takes a country like Luxembourg. Their prime minister is Lord Fredman. He didn't study engineering, yet the country is doing well. He studied law. But so many countries that are underperforming, they have had engineers in their country become the president, become prime ministers, become, people who are in the House of Senate, they are senators and all of that. It is not about being an engineer. It is about having the perspicacity that helps solve this problem of your people in that society that makes the difference. So if you look at what I'm sharing right now, you can always accept the fact that the man is not necessarily 100% right. Now, are you telling me that since Philippines got their independence, that they have not been able to make a single person who studied engineering their president? There's a possibility that I didn't go ahead to do a research on that, but there's a possibility that someone who studied engineering may have in sometimes in the past ruled them, but it didn't change anything. If you want to change a nation, you must choose a leader, a visionary leader, a visionless leader. Even if he studied engineering and have 100 PhDs, he's still going to fail woefully. It is the vision of the leader that lifts the nation up. If you look at UAE, the Prime Minister of UAE, Mohammed Ibn Rashid, he didn't study engineering. That look at where the country is today. These things is what you need to pay attention to. You don't just choose one country and say this is how every country should develop. That's not the case. There is variables. There's dependable, there is independent variable that builds a society. So what you should ask yourself is, If I take what the Chinese people are doing and deploy it in my own system, is it going to work? And why would it work? You have to first of all dissect the mentality and the ideology that the leaders in China have come to head grip of. It's not just what they studied, but the ideology that is positioning them to do what they do. If you don't have the same ideology, if you don't represent the same ideas and you become an engineer and become a president of your nation, you're still going to fail woefully, because the world is ruled by idea. According to Plato, he said that the only real word is the word of idea. Every other thing is just a story. So the best way to find a continent or a country that will become a first world is to simply look at the initiative of the leader and the visions that he carries, the idea that he represents, his ability to create institutions, policies that enables inclusiveness instead of extractive institutions. No matter how you try in an economy, if you like, take all the people in the office of the governance and make all of them engineer, maybe in the House of Senate, a president, a prime minister, whatever, you make all of them engineers. If they are visionless, they will never succeed. And if they practice extractive institution, no matter what they do, the wealth of the nation will so much be in the hand of a few, while the rest of the country or the continent will continue to struggle. This is the problem of many nations. It's not necessarily the discipline that's studied, it is the initiative of whosoever is leading them. There is a cliche that the army of a sheep led by a lion will always beat the army of lion led by a sheep. That's what it means. A visionless leader having engineering certification or certificate representing a country will still fail. But a leader with a vision having a certificate of, say, anything, you can say maybe agri science, or you can just be law or economics or whatever you can call it, they will still excel, right? The current leader and prime minister and the president of Singapore, both of them studied economics. They didn't study engineering. The whole idea is that if you must build a nation, you must find the rarest of all amongst you, the one that you can trace his or her track record from day one. You don't just pick a leader and throw him in the office. Check how many years. If they are 50 years, you have to go back and track when they were 10 years, when they were 12 years, when they were 15 years, 16, 20, 25, 30 years. Those are the most crucial aspect of a leader. How did he or she contribute to his community? What are the type of vision that he shared with the people around him, the young people? What were the type of vision he had? You can't just see somebody wake up because he started engineering. He's visionless. You say, I want to become a president. That's what happens to most countries across the continent which are underdeveloped, because they go ahead and pick someone who do not know nothing about leadership. He has no idea of how to help their people out of poverty. He doesn't feel the pain of his people. He just wants to become a leader. How do you want such person to build, even if he made PhD in engineering? It's a simple concept. Most great leaders are made in their 20s. What you see in their 50s and 60s are the result of what has compounded over the years. This is how it works. That's why the best states in the world, if you want to actually get the best leader, is during the election, you go ahead and study the background of them, those guys, because we are the product of programs. As we are told in psychology that we function based on unconscious state of our mind. So if 95% of the things I do are the product of what I've been programmed to do over the years. I do not just wake up and start telling you what I'm telling you now. It's something that I've refined myself over the years to do. I can't just wake up and start being me. I must have programmed myself. That's leadership right there. A great leader may have refined himself from when he was just 10 years old, the way he treats the old people in society, the way he's able to mobilize young people. You see them that when they are young, they are easily, when you see them, people are around them. Anywhere they come, they draw attention. When things are not happening, when they break their football, they'll be the first person to go out there and say, let's contribute money and buy football. That's leadership playing out there, but you not see, because the person is still in his maybe 14 years, 12 years old. He knows that the ball they are using to play in their village has broken, and there's no one to use to play again. So what he does is to initiative. Throughout his initiative, he said he goes to their different houses, talking to his mates. He say, contribute 10 naira, 50 naira, let's buy football. That's leadership. When you see the person in school, when things are not going right, he's trying to produce idea that will help to shape the class in the right way. That's leadership. You don't just wake up and say, I studied engineering or I studied law, whatever you studied, and say, I'll become the president of. You cannot do nothing good for your society. You have had to have that mentality first that you want the society to go in the right direction from day one. That's why we don't have great leaders that transform societies. Society is being transformed by great leaders who had vision from day one that they wanted good for their society so that they will not go there and practice extractive institution. Anybody that lives that way from childhood, when he assumes the office of power, he's always looking out for what I can do to make the life of my citizen better. It's not about me alone, it's about all of us. It's just a simple concept. So it's not about the discipline. And that's what I wanted to share in this. I wanted to prove the man wrong that it's not about discipline, it is about the initiative of the leader in that country that makes the difference. And at the moment you get this, you can as well look into the system or your country and can be able to tell the reason why you are growing or why you are not growing. This is why every leader that, whether you're an engineer, you studied fine and apply art or whatever you study, with the right initiative for your people, you will introduce an inclusive institution that will help the society to thrive and escalate and become a first world country possibly. It's not a big deal. If you take, like, in the next 1,000 years, if you continue to put visionary men in the offices of power in Philippines, you are continuing going to be the way you are. You cannot break even and become a first world country. This is how it's done. And I've shown you the people that did it. In fact, the people that built all the nations you just pointed out were not engineers. They were lawyers. You see what I mean? From China to Japan to Singapore, you can just name them. So Luxembourg, these are countries to Americas. Most of them didn't study what? They were not engineers. This is just a simple concept. And when I looked at it, I didn't want to share my commentary on this, but because of the reply of this guy, and I said, okay, let me share my commentary on this. So I want you as well to go to the comment section and tell me what you think about this. If you have a different perspective from what I've shared or a different idea, then you can share with me. I may actually learn one or two things from it. But this is what I wanted to share with you guys on this particular video. And if you have learned one or two things, I want you to do one thing for me. Go ahead right now, share this video with your family and friends. And remember that I am Captain Africa. Ad Astra.